Thank you for tuning in to BP Ensemble's social media series, You Have Time to Support a Small Business. I am your host and producer, BP Harris, and I am sitting here with a new industry, something that we have not learned about, we haven't explored. I'm gonna let him tell you what it is.
Thanks for having me. So, greetings, everyone. My name is James Alford, and I have a LLC, James LLC, and from that, I have a few different projects that I work on. So one is my podcast, the 79th Street Podcast. I try to talk about a lot of educational topics. With the LLC, I just kind of want to get into like consulting, public speaking, and so I've been able to just branch out and work with a number of different organizations and schools, to talk about various topics revolving around mentoring, leadership, and college access.
So you got a lot going on, a lot of great things, especially young adults and youth need. So how did you start all of this?
So I got started during the pandemic on paper, as we would say, but I kind of been working throughout, I want to say life, just like speaking, workshops, and things of that sort. And then during the pandemic, I was like, hey, why don't I just make this a business entity? And I just kind of went from there. Like, I did it, came up with the idea. Shout out to my friend Cherish, because we had a lot of sleepless nights at the beginning of the pandemic where we're going to sleep at like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, shooting ideas off of each other. And she was like, James, you just need to put it on paper. And from there, you got the LLC. And then the podcast came where I was blogging and I would share it with some people. And they'd be like, James, you need to talk to people like for real. And I was like, all right, so let me do a podcast. And I look up, $150 mic, just to do the podcast. And it was pretty cool. And I'm just glad to just have found those things, because it kept me connected to the world when everybody, I guess, felt like that self-isolation and was having a lot of mental health issues. I was able to still stay connected to people. And I'm excited for that.
Well, that's pretty dope. So we got a whole new thing going on. Like, you just started during the pandemic. Yeah. So like, this is even more motivation, because a lot of people been scared. I mean, we've seen some businesses go and we've seen new businesses pop up, but so many people have just been so like timid about their next move. So it's really great to hear about somebody like you who started your business literally in the midst of everything that we've been going through, especially in 2020.
Yeah.
So like, what's been the most challenging part? Because I know you have some things to add for that, because I mean, it's different. Like I said, like everybody else, they've been in business 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, but no, you started in the midst of a million challenges. So what are some that's really been like, that was just really like, really hard for you, like really getting on your nerves, really made you like constantly kept second guessing if this was a good time to start your business?
I think with anything, there's always doubt. I feel like doubt is the biggest killer. And so I went back and forth a lot on, when do you launch? When do you tell people? I got a buddy, who like, I ain't gonna say, he an expert, but, bro put me together a website. And so it's like, okay, when do I put this in my bio, put it out there? And so I say those are like kind of some of the biggest things. And, with talking to people, you just learn like, all right, it's just good to, do launches around like significant dates. And so I had missed some stuff. And so I was like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to drop this on my birthday. Like, I'm like, forget it, I'm going to drop it on my birthday. And so like, people know like, hey, that's what we talking about. Like, you got this going. Or even like, I put the podcast out there before I did the business, and I didn't know I was gonna get like as much feedback as I got from it. And it was like, and I didn't know also too, because it was like a crazy day, right? Where like I'm sitting there, I upload the episode, and then it's like boom, here go the podcast. I started it, logo. And then it's like, my aunt passed that same day. So it was like, you getting a bunch of like, a bunch of different reactions. So it's the sad, the sadness and the grief. But then there's also like people like, yo, this is dope. Like, can I get on? You know, and so, but I think doubt, like, it is the biggest killer. And I think the content is there, but I also think, like, for me personally, another obstacle, you know, sort of say, is I have a full-time job. Like, you know, where you can only do so much because I got to clock in for my full-time because that's what's paying the, you know, the bills. And we're like, right now, I know some people, they can kind of, depend on their products, you know, they can get out there a lot more, make way more money. But mine's is kind of, I don't want to say a hobby, but mine's is kind of like a hobby right now where it's like, it's kind of secondary, but it's a good secondary where, like, hopefully when I choose to move on in the world, I can pick this up full time and be able to run with it because it's that type of structure and it encompasses where it's like, all right, when I'm done with this and I'm ready to go 110% into it, I'll be able to, you know, to live, you know, off of it because that's what I've put into it.
Doubt. That is a key word. That gets in everyone's way. Mm-hmm. But I'm glad that you persevered. Because, I mean, you here. You got your business. You speaking. Like, think about all the opportunities it brought. And you've been in business less than 2 years. Like, that's amazing. It's motivational. So I'm glad that you just, you know, moved out the way and you just kept going. Mm-hmm. So, like, what sets you apart? So outside of you just, you know, facing fear ahead and just like, you know, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna drop this, I'm gonna see what's gonna happen. Outside of that, what else makes your podcast different from other podcasts?
Honestly, I don't know if this bragging or being cocky. I want to say, you know, me. I feel like my experiences, just some of the opportunities I've had, makes me have a great product, makes people want to communicate, interact with me. And so, like, you know, if I share a few things, you know, where, like, how many people, you know that at one point in time, I think I got kicked out of college, right? And so to say that I was at that point where I got kicked out of college, I worked my way up to graduate, go to grad school, get a master's degree, to even, it wasn't the right timing, but to get into doctoral level programs and being from a home of, a single parent household and a first generation college student. So I think, like, just like some of those things makes people like, oh, you know, let's have a conversation. How did you overcome all of the negative boundaries of growing up in a urban area, right? You know, what challenged and motivated you? And a lot of people are interested in that. And I think, I'm going to say it, you know, I feel like I had one of the best college experiences any college student has ever had. And so that has molded and shaped me into, like, the professional that I am. But those experiences, I was able to grow, work professionally, and just network and meet people where, like, you know, I can be walking downtown and bump into, you know, a classmate, you know, and it's like, oh, what's up? You know, what are you doing? Oh, I work down here. Oh, me too. You know, and so, you know, just have those connections. But I think, honestly, just me and the experiences I've been able to have, like, is like God tier, because students and even professionals, they be like, yo, that was dope. Like, how did you come about being in China? Like, how many people, like, I remember a buddy of mine's, I took one class with him, but, like, say, you know, when you in, like, your Black Studies classes, like, y'all kind of link. And I remember I went to China and I came back, and this dude was like, it was Joe Griff. He was like, man, James, he said, I only know 2 black people that's been to China. He was like, Stefan Marbury and you, and I really don't know him. I know you. So he was like, bro, that's dope. And I think when people hear you talk about that and you can lead, like, I can start off a conversation and people are anticipating, like, oh, what's going on? Because they've never been there. So it's like, to them, it's like, how is it different? You know, and yeah, so I think just me and my experiences, that makes, you know, my product and the experiences where, like, I get invited to, like, a lot of mentoring conversations. And I've been around mentoring, I'm 30, so I've probably been in, like, mentoring opportunities and situations probably 18 years. And so when people hear that, it's like, well, you're only 30. I say, yeah, I was a mentee. Then you move from a program, then you become a mentor. then you go be a mentee in another program. And so it's like the revolving door where it's like you're always, working. And so I think just me and my experiences, that's what make me stand out, because you're not going to find somebody else that got, like a similar experience.
I think that's a perfect way to say like what stands out. Like it is you. I mean, it's a podcast. So when you tune in a podcast, typically it's because of somebody. It's their experience, something that it's literally just their experience. So because it's like, why else would you tune in? Like it's something about it. So I mean, that's great. And I mean, I know you've been through, like different things and stuff. I mean, you are very versatile, very knowledgeable at a lot of things that are very useful to a listener. So it's really good that, like I said, once again, that you started this because it's needed. I mean, we need someone outside the norm, and you're authentic with what you do, what you talk about. Like, you all definitely should check out his podcast. Like, I love it. Like, anybody know me, I love authenticity. So it's great that that's what your podcast shows, like, with all of your experience. So since you started, in the pandemic, what have been some ways or some things that you've done to get yourself out there that may have been different? Like had you started this 5 years ago?
There's a lot that goes into it, right? Where there's a lot of virtual spaces that we can say for podcasters. There's also some Black podcast space where, I've put myself out there. But even, just responding to social media where I have put in content, out there on social media. So just responding to like the listeners, because you never know how somebody's gonna find a page. And that has led to like people like, oh, you want to be a guest on my podcast, because in my day job, I am an educator. I'm an academic advisor at a college. And so, I've had people interested in that, just like, what is your philosophy? How do you go about it? And one guy, like I said, reached out, and I'm like, cool. So I jumped on his podcast, just like off of, a random, interaction. And I think, those are the type of things, like whenever you can, put yourself out there. So like I reached out to like some other professionals from California where they were doing like this academic advising podcast. So I'm an academic advisor, like, man, y'all gotta have me on there because it's me. And then we had an initial conversation. He was like, all right, yeah, we definitely need you, but I want to put you on my one I do for work and this one, because that was kind of like the one that was fun, but it was a podcast you ran for work. It was like, I don't want you on both of them. And so, just whenever you can, like I said, pub and look for different guests, because everybody has their network and following the people. So bringing in different guests with different, different followings, but different ideas, because they're going to bring people in to listen. And so, because like next Friday, I'm going to hop on with a friend. She's been doing like these Facebook Lives. And so she want me to hop on to talk about like mental health stuff. And so, and I want to talk about, I think this is what I'm going to talk about. So like, hey, let's talk about my stint with PTSD, growing up in, Chicago. And she was like, that's going to be a great topic, but whatever you can. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be a shameless plug. Like, all right, tell people about the podcast. Like, and that's on me to be able to do it. But I try to drop it, in the rooms. And believe it or not, the demand for people to be on the podcast is more than like how many episodes I have, because everybody, wants to be involved. They want to share their story, and they just want to be a part of it. And I'm grateful. And I think one of the best things I've done, it's probably going to look different this season, was just like a barbershop talk and just having like couple, guys just come and we just talk about issues. And like, I swear that was like the most viewed episode from season 2, like just called it Barbershop Talk. And, we just ran with it. And so that's what I just try to do, like pub, but also like, you're going to spend some money too, like where sometimes I've paid, $10, $20 to market on, on Facebook, or even like better editing software for videos where like it can put together logos, intros, just because you want to do something that's going to, catch people's attention. And so I've been, like I said, doing some of everything just to, put myself and put the podcast out there.
That's really, I think that's a key point. I think a lot of people miss that. Like, you just described people engagement. I think a lot of people in business, we just like, okay, well, if I pay for this Facebook ad, if I pass out these flyers, then, or if I interview on WGCI or something like, or iHeartRadio, then okay, I'm good. My business is going to take off. But no, it's the relationships that you're building, which are getting you those opportunities and those viewers towards what you're doing. So I'm glad you mentioned that. But like, what about women in the barbershop? Like, I like aligning.
Well,
Like,
I'm not I don't identify, as that. And so I brought on a co-host this season. And so I told her, because it is a woman, I told her like, hey, this went really well. And I said, if you wanted to duplicate it, you could definitely do like a sister circle and, you just go for it. Like, because I know part of it is being comfortable. And like when you're doing something like that, like it's like being at the barbershop for real. Like you're going to do so much talking. Because I remember when I first moved back, I was actually going to like a co-ed, like it was a barbershop and a,
beauty shop.
Beauty shop. And so the discussions weren't like they were when like you just in like a regular barbershop. Like men talk about everything, music, games, videos, like everything. And I don't even think it was no conversation. It was always music playing. So
kind of like the movie Barbershop a little bit.
Yeah, like it was always music playing. Like
that's pretty dope. So obviously you're building, building your legacy within your podcast, within your mentoring and speaking. So what are your goals? Like next year, 5, 10, 20 years? What's some goals that you have for us?
So I think like some goals, I think maybe like a 15-year goal. It's probably going to be, maybe just to be able to just do this like full time, like find a way just to make that income just keep coming in so I can live off of it. I think shorter goals is just, make it through another season with the podcast. But I think also even more frequently than that, like a year ago, would be to just find like some reoccurring clients where it's like every year I know they're going to want me to do a workshop or two for their students. And, just working at, but also that there's a level of, me putting myself out there. And I gotta grow through that, but I think those are like, spot on, like I said, the goals, and then hopefully one day I can be able to like hire an assistant. Like, all right, you handle this, and I just go out, and speak to the people because, like I said, it can be, or a social media manager. Like that's the one thing where it can be really, really, time consuming. Like I said, creating content. Posting it, making sure you post to be engaged, and like I try to do like random stuff like, oh, what do y'all want to hear about? Like, what questions y'all have about college? Or I try to answer random stuff on social media. And so, maybe hire somebody where you can just pay them to do that. Like, all right, that's your job. You take care of it because it is like I said, it's a market for it. Like people, are always looking for it. But also too, I know like, there's the range because you have your extremes where your top dollar people, then you have like your middle tier people, and then your bottom tier people, and so it's like finding your lane, what you're comfortable with. As far as like a price, I'm not telling anybody to undersell itself, but I do understand the importance of sometimes like you have to do that pro bono work where you got to do one free to get maybe 2 paid ones, and so. That's an important thing where like, making sure it's like I don't want to say a big name, but like leaving an impression was like, all right, I'm doing this free one, leave an impression. You still prepare for it like it's, a paid gig. And then they going to remember you down the line. Like, I did one recently. Like I spoke with the Chicago Urban League. Like it was a friend recommendation because she used to work there and was like, hey, they need a speaker. And I'm not going to lie. I thought I was going to have like 15, 20 minutes. They're like, oh, yeah, you got like 45 minutes. I'm like, all right, bet. So went through it. And then when it got to like the questions, the students was involved. Like they was listening to what I was saying. And it was like, okay, this is what I'm talking about. Like, people want to hear about, like I said, the hardships, but the study abroad. But And I know they're going to remember that down the line because afterwards, the woman was like, oh my gosh, that was so awesome. We want to send you a gift card. Okay, cool. I'm going to take it. Like, I went into it thinking it was free. So if they send me, a gift card, $25, $50, I still came up.
I cannot with you. That's good. That's really dope. Like, that's yeah. I mean, like you said, it's great opportunities. So it sounds like basically for your goals, it's kind of like people driven, which is really good. Like I said earlier, you're very authentic. So you're about the people, serving the people. So it's like they're creating, your business in a sense. So you're getting some ideas from them, you're creating the content, you're producing it. So that's really dope. I know there's always going to be content. Always. I mean, with you being in it's always mentorship is needed. That's so important. Like whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a student, I mean, just a human being. It's great to have a mentor, just have guidance. I mean, that's what it's about. It's always opportunity to speak, for all, like, I think sometimes we think everything is oversaturated because that's a big thing when people start a business. They're like, oh, well, this field it's already a lot of people doing this, but it's your touch. Yeah. That's what a lot of people forget. It's something about what you do and how you do it that makes it stand out and that makes it different. So just right there, like I said, your podcast is driven off people and you're designing it by people. Sometimes people just, I want to talk about this and it's about them and you just hear it. Yeah. So that's a huge difference. So that's really dope. I like your goals are very unique. Like no one has said anything like that. So that's really dope. So with that being said, what advice would you give to someone who's trying to get in your industry? A lot of people look at mentorship, speaking engagements, podcasting. They look at that as, it's just a hobby. But a lot of people don't look at it super serious. Like you said, you talked about pro bono work and stuff, and people want to do what they love, but we got to live too. We got to survive. So people who are just stuck in that limbo, what advice or what tips would you give them to like persevere with what they want to do?
I mean, as cliche as this may sound, I would tell them you just got to do it. You're never going to know what type of impact, what type of experience you're going to have unless you try it. And then as you get into the field, you're going to start seeing that there's people doing exactly what you're doing. And they may have something that's like crazy. Like, I can tell you, there's people with like some crazy podcasts that I wouldn't have thought of, but they're making it work. And so, try it, just see what happens. And I think also the other important thing is like, sometimes you need to, as they say, protect your intellectual property, where like some ideas you don't need to put out there until it's concrete. So it's some stuff where I tell you in private, but I'm not just going to tell the whole world because I don't want nobody stealing that idea because I know it's going to be a gold idea, or I think it's going to be a gold idea. And so just knowing what to share and what not to share, because, it gets real. It gets to, like I said, being a dog-eat-dog world, but network. There's a lot of people willing to help, offer advice. And like I said, for me, it was something that's like, one of my friends, we worked together at my last job, he ran the school news station. So I'm like, hey, Pete, I need a mic. What mic do you recommend? I'm trying to get the podcast. He's like, all right. Send me a couple of them. Send me like 4. I'm like, all right. Boom, I'm going to get this one. And so like, just utilizing it because it's people that'll walk you through like, oh, you should do this. Like, because there's some free stuff. Like, you're going to have to pay for some stuff, right? And so they can tell you, hey, this worked good. So back to that network, and that network is going to be key because, people are going to let you know what it is, like the time commitment. And it is a time commitment. Like, this stuff, like I said, it's like having, another job, because you're going to put in X amount of hours. And like, if I got a workshop or a speaking engagement coming up, I promise you, it could be a 45-minute, hour thing. I'm probably putting in 10 hours of work, just for that one workshop, that one speaking engagement. And so you definitely, like I said, just got to be willing to, to put the time and, this is a knock to me because if I didn't watch so much Netflix, just thinking of how much more, I could be doing. But I choose my mental health because, I went to school for 20 years? And so I'm choosing me in a lot of these battles.
Just do it. That's really great advice. Like, it's so simple, but people overlook that. Like, I mean, we geek ourselves up with negativity that at the end of the day, you're never gonna know unless you start executing. Like, you're not gonna get results unless you just do it. So you never lose. Like, people be so quick to say, "Oh, I lost money." No, you didn't. You learned. Money come and go. Like, and honestly, you gotta spend money to learn. Period. Like, think about them. You were in school, you just didn't pay for it. Like elementary school, the little fees we had, like you didn't pay for it, but your parents had to pay for it. Right. Like, high school, trade school, career, college, all that stuff. You have to spend money to learn. So you won't lose. You just got to try it to get those results. So you're going to learn something. And once you learn, you just pivot and you keep growing. So I really appreciate you, for being here, taking your time and just dropping gems. Cause like you had some great things to say. And I know y'all want more. Like you're not on season 3 with your podcast for no reason. So where can people find you?
So first they can start off by, going and checking out James Alford LLC.com. So I know everybody got the James part. They've been spelling my last name wrong since I was a kid, but my last name is Alford, so Al Ford. And you'll be able to connect with me from there, like on everything, like podcast, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. The Instagram name is 79th Street _podcast, Facebook 79th Street Podcast, and the same with YouTube. Definitely willing to have people on, communicate with you, answer any question that you may have, because as I mentioned, I've been doing mentoring a long time, and in my day job, I'm an educator. So, that's a unique perspective where people always want to know, like, hey, what about college access? What type of things do you recommend for students, transitioning from high school to college? So really, I'm an open book. I try to be, but, I also want to give people information that they want to help them be successful and whatever they do. So if it's, college, trade school, I just want people to know that all of those are viable options for them and that, they can do it with confidence.
Yes. And as always, everyone we interview can be found where? On our page, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, all platforms, BP Ensemble. Definitely reach out to James. Like I say, he's authentic. He's resourceful. This man know everybody. I mean, I've had the pleasure of knowing him over 10 years. Every time we hang out, can't never go out without him knowing somebody, talking to somebody. Like, he knows everybody. Like, if he don't know, he's really great at pinpointing you to a person who does. So definitely, like, tune in. Like I said earlier, he's not on season 3 for no reason. Like, he's engaged all the time on Facebook and stuff. So James is a great person to get in tune with. So please reach out to him. Like you said, he speaks. He's a great mentor. He has a lot of mentees who love him and show love to him all the time because of the person who he is and the work that he puts in. So definitely stay connected with James. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And thank you all for watching. And remember, you have time to support James Alford LLC.